Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. I hope everyone is having a lovely Saturday. I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you had a good week as well. Well, today we're just going to cut straight to the chase and get ready to introduce our guest for today. With us we have Bunny, and Bunny is publisher, author. So without further ado, I will let Bunny introduce herself to the audience. Welcome, Bunny.
Thank you so much. So this is Bonnie Marlewski-Probert, and no one can pronounce my last name. I should really just get a one name like Cher or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's Bonnie Marlewski-Probert, and yes, I have been in the publishing world for about 30 years, doing magazine work first. I've sold we stopped counting at 1,000 magazine articles to a wide variety of publications, from children's magazines, PBS, Sesame Street,
Wow,
Good Housekeeping magazine, science journals, women's journals, Christian magazines. We've covered the gambit on that. And the interesting thing about that is, the reason why I'm bringing that up is, for writers out there, once you understand the process of how to get published, you can write in any market you want.
cool.
Yeah, because what I discovered, I should say, I sent out 1,000 letters, query letters, to try and sell 10 magazine articles. And I chose a market that I knew inside and out. I chose a horse market to start my writing career. All of them got rejected. I literally had a binder with 100 rejection letters in it.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the interesting thing. Finally, a magazine editor called me and said, "We love your writing, but you suck as a photographer."
Oh my gosh, that was harsh.
Yeah. No, but the funny thing, I was so excited that she liked my writing, I didn't even hear the rest of it, right? So I said to her, "Okay, so what do we do?" And she said, "If you don't have a problem with it, we'll have our people do the artwork, if that's okay with you." And I was like, knock your socks off.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing, and this is what I want writers to know. From a marketing standpoint, from that day forward, the query letters that I sent out were exactly the same for the same 10 articles, with the exception of one sentence.
Wow.
And it was a sentence in the very first paragraph of the query letter, and it said, "My work has appeared in XYZ magazine."
Oh, okay.
That was the only change.
But it made
And
the difference. Yeah.
All of the magazines that had previously said no mysteriously now said yes, and I hadn't changed a word in any of the articles.
Other than the first sentence.
It was just, and the interesting thing was, they didn't buy the magazine articles, they bought the query letter.
Ah.
See, so what most writers do is they focus on the article, or they focus on the book, and the query letter is an afterthought.
Yeah.
When in fact, it's the query letter that makes or breaks the deal. And it's usually the first paragraph of the query letter makes or breaks the deal.
It is. I think that should be one of the things that is taught when you want to publish your work, is how to write a query letter. Because it is.
Right.
Because that's the first thing they see. The first thing that they see, that's their first impression of you as a writer. So that is very important. And that is funny that you got all of those rejections, and then all you did was change the first few letters of the first sentence, and it got their attention. That is wild.
And And the interesting thing is that if you thought of it in terms of if you were the magazine editor or you were the editor at the book publishing house, you don't really think those people are going to read a whole article or a whole book. Who's got time to do that?
Right, right.
Instead, what they will do, though, in most cases, is they'll read at least one paragraph of your query letter. And you can pretty well, sort of, I worked in the horse industry for a long time, and in the horse industry, I could tell you a quality horse by just watching it move for 10 seconds.
Because you've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So my sense is that a magazine editor or a book publisher can sense a good writer in 5 or 6 sentences.
That's good to know.
And if you can't sell yourself in that first paragraph of 5 or 6 sentences, you can't sell yourself.
Right, and that makes all the sense in the world.
Right, exactly. So I started in the magazine world. Once I broke ground in the magazine world, I signed my first publishing deal with an East Coast publishing house, and that turned into a nightmare of epic proportion. It was the equivalent of a college education in traditional publishing.
So tell us about it.
Well, the concept was they wanted to buy a book that I wrote, which was called A Parent's Guide to Buying That First Horse.
Okay.
So it was a nonfiction how-to book that was geared towards families to help them make a good decision, both for themselves and for the horse, of course. So they wanted me to sign the deal right away. I was so excited when they sent the big contract. I just signed it
without reading it.
Because I thought they know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. They know what they're doing.
Right.
And then I discovered 4 years later, while they were still mucking around with this, they finally confessed that the reason why they gave me the contract was because they didn't want their competitors to get the book.
Oh my goodness. That was so sneaky.
But they had no intentions of publishing it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like so shady.
Yeah.
For most first authors, and this happened 30 years ago, for most first authors, no publishing house is going to want to give you an advance because they don't have to. So, in the publishing world, if I can get you to sign over the copyrights of your book to me, and I don't have to pay you anything up front, boy, that's what they call good business.
On their end is good business.
You betcha. And if an author agrees to those terms, it's really bad business for them.
Because you're trapped for however long that contract lasts because you can't go anywhere else. So that is
exactly. They own you.
Yeah.
They own you for that period of time. And worse than that, we've worked with plenty of authors who have said they signed a traditional deal. The publisher changed the title of the book, changed the interior of the book, changed the flow of the story of the book. And when the author kept calling them and saying, you can't do this, the response was, we own the book.
Wow.
We can do whatever we want.
Wow.
So what I recommend to authors is own the outcome. In all things in your life, own the outcome. That is, and I don't know if you know who Marianne Williamson is.
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, Marianne Williamson is an author who works with Hay House. She's a motivational speaker. She's sort of a spiritual kind of author. Marianne Williamson once did a speech in which she was in front of a group of screenwriters, and she said to them, if you can't to do it yourself and own the outcome, then why would you think an outside publishing house would?
Exactly.
And P.S., currently, most traditional publishing houses are only going to promote your book for 90 days anyway. After that, it's up to you.
Yes.
But they're still going to own it. And they're still going to own the vast majority of the profits, 85 to 90% of the profits off of every sale. So even if you work your tail off to sell a bunch of books, you're not making the profit.
Well, I recently had a conversation with she was a traditionally published author. And she said, and she also did some of the work that you do in your PR company. She said that that they didn't like self-publishing. And I really didn't go into detail about it, asking her why, because I pretty much had a good idea as to why she didn't like self-publishing. And so you have, really attested to why she didn't like self-publishing, because based on what you just said about, you lose all control of your work, because you've sold your creation away. You've sold it. And so you no longer have any say about anything, and they can do, like you said, pretty much whatever they want to do. But in self-publishing, you still maintain that control. So let's talk about self-publishing just a little bit more.
Okay. The value of self-publishing, and let me say that we do what we call hybrid publishing. So we offer authors, we work with hundreds of authors, including like Shark Tank winners and pre-Olympic riders.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that what we do is we bring the editors, the cover designers, the formatters, all to the table on a work-for-hire basis.
Mm-hmm.
And when the job is done, we get out of the way and all the profits belong to the author.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
a great deal.
Well, the tricky part about self-publishing is it's like building your own house.
Right.
If you aren't good at general contracting, that is bringing in editors, cover designers, layout people, promotional people, getting book reviews for the back cover before you go to press.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not organized enough to orchestrate all of that,
mm-hmm.
it's the equivalent of trying to build your own house without a general contract.
And that's key. You need good organizational skills to do this. And, I've always said that whatever practice you have in your personal life, it should carry over in your business life. So if you're not good at doing those things in your personal life, then your business life, and I'm just going to use this word, will suck. So what you said that is something that they need to know. So go ahead, please continue.
And I think it's important to know that, like in our case, we do hybrid publishing. So an author comes to us, we provide the editors, we provide the cover designers, we provide the layout people, we provide everything they need to get book reviews ahead,
mm-hmm.
so we can put them on the inside front couple of pages of the book and on the back cover. Mm-hmm. So if it's in a bookstore and people are trying to decide what to buy, the reviews are right there on the back cover.
There you go.
If it's on Amazon, mm-hmm. and you do the sneak peek on Amazon, mm-hmm. the reviews pop up.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news is you can do all of that before the book goes to press. So, because at that point, you're not going to have any reviews on Amazon.
Right.
You do what we call pre-reviews, and then we put them on the inside few pages of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So when people do a sneak peek, even though Amazon doesn't have any reviews on Amazon yet,
mm-hmm.
the book is filled with them.
Right. And that's important because, I love reading. And that is one of the things before I purchase a book. When I'm just browsing through trying to find something good to read, that's the first thing I do is look at the reviews, because I want to know, how everyone else felt about this book before I invest my time, because it's an investment, one of money and two of time. So I want to make sure that, first of all, I'm getting my money's worth. And second of all, that, that the story that I am about to just totally involve myself in, I want to make sure that, that it's going to be worth my time when I sit down and read it. So that's important to have those reviews.
Yeah, I think it's important to do that. So we help them get pre-publication reviews. We have a whole pool of book reviewers that we can tap into mm-hmm. that can do that. And so the back cover is prepared. The inside front pages are prepared. The layout is clean. And P.S., when we work with authors, we do what we call a pre-market review of the book.
Explain what that is.
Okay, so what we do is we actually read the whole book, and then we sit down with the author and have the dreaded conversation, which goes like this.
Okay.
Explain to me who you wrote this book for.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a 35-year-old housewife with 2.5 kids and a dog in the backyard? Is it a nuclear scientist? Is it a 6-year-old? Explain to me who this book was written for, because that will change everything we do going forward. Mm-hmm. It'll change the cover design. It'll change the layout design. It will change the marketing approach. It will change the book reviewers. Everything changes with that decision. And I promise you, I have never met an author yet who thought about that before they wrote their book.
Right. So this is essentially great advice. It's something, it's food for thought, actually. It's something, especially if you are, new to the publishing, new to the, to this whole, idea of writing books. You need to know everything that's involved with it. And I mean, this is just wonderful advice. To think about these things before you actually submit your work, or for self-publishing or whatever, or if you're going to use a PR company like you guys, to think about that. And that's something that I've never thought about either. So that is absolutely wonderful.
Well, here's the thing. If I'm thinking about, well, let me just preface this by saying, as an author, I have always thought of myself as a servant to my audience.
Okay.
So the 1,000 magazine articles that we've sold, not a single one of those was written with my voice. Mm-hmm. Not a single one of those was written for me. Mm-hmm. So if I went to Good Housekeeping magazine, their demographic is 35 to 45-year-old housewives with 2.5 kids and a dog. I wrote in that voice to reach them because my job is to serve the demographic.
And that's important. That's an important factor in writing. It is.
It is, because if I write, I'll give an example. A really simple example, a how-to book on how to tie a shoe.
Okay.
If I write that book for a 6-year-old and I try to market it to nuclear scientists, mm-hmm. I'm not going to sell anything.
No.
Right? And the reverse is also true. If I write it with high-level lingo for a nuclear scientist audience and then I try to market it to 6-year-olds,
right,
I'm not sell any books.
No, that makes sense. You're right.
So if as a professional writer, if you start out by saying, my job is to serve my audience, mm-hmm. that's my job. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you start with that premise, then you do your demographic research before you start writing the book. Mm-hmm. The story remains the same, but the way you tell the story changes dramatically.
Yes.
The way the cover looks changes, the layout changes, the marketing approach changes, the reviews change. Mm-hmm. Everything changes based on that one decision. Mm-hmm. So when an author doesn't ask that question up front, mm-hmm. who am I writing this book for? If they don't answer that question up front, they've actually handicapped themselves on every level going forward.
Yes. And
hinder their ability to make a living.
Exactly. And I mean, that is valuable. It really is. And, that's why it is so good to, have shows like this, have discussions like this. So you can do your homework, because it's all part of it. It's more to writing a book than just sitting down doing it. You have to think about all the other things that goes into that. And so now we've talked about services. So let's talk about consulting and packages and ghostwriting. Let's talk about those three things.
Okay. So we phone consulting for authors around the globe, and they will spend their time with me personally on the phone. Mm-hmm. We offer them the opportunity to record the call. We have the system set up to record the call, and we send them an MP3 of the call so that they can go back to it over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And you probably didn't notice, but I talk fast.
Oh, no, I didn't notice that at all.
No, but the point is, if an author spends an hour with me on the phone, they're going to need a recording of the call, because I'm not playing when I do this.
Right.
I mean, I am as serious as a heart attack about making sure we get 2 hours worth of material in that 1 hour call.
Right.
Right. So they're going to need the tape recorder, the MP3 of mm-hmm. the call. So we can discuss marketing. We can discuss, how to expand their book idea. And let me just say, one of the things that I recommend to authors is, if you choose a demographic, if an author says, for example, I really want to reach 18-year-old girls, the hardest part of marketing your work is what I call breaking trail.
Okay.
Building that first audience on social media or on a mailing list. When you start to build that audience, that's hard work. Mm-hmm. So what I would say to authors is, first book is the hard book, because you got to build the audience. Mm-hmm. So once you've got the audience, you have to be out of your mind not to have other books to serve that same audience. You've done all the hard work to build the audience, you might as well continue to serve them.
Exactly.
So what I suggest to authors is, don't think about one book. Think about a series of books, or multiple books, if it's not a series, multiple books that will serve that audience. So, for example, if you said 18-year-old girls going to college, okay, so you can do a million how-to books on how to avoid the freshman 15, how to leave home for the first time and succeed, how to be successful in your classes and be disciplined, enough to show up to school. There's all of that. Then it's the dating in college. There's a million books you could write that would serve that audience very nicely. So once you build that audience, always think in terms of what else can I help them with.
Right.
And let me just say that whether it's fiction or nonfiction, let's say you're doing romance novels, which I just did in 2018 for the first time.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that too.
Okay, so if you're doing fiction and you build an audience of your demographic of people who love your work, then you're crazy not to have more in the pipeline. Right.
Well, so, I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think going into it, as a writer, you always have some project going on, that's just not how your creativity works. You're always writing. So, if you know that you are going to be a one-hit wonder, then it's not worth your time, it's not worth your money, and it's not worth the people who are trying to help you establish a career, to really invest all that time into that if you're only going to write one book. Because most people who start writing, they think of it as a career goal anyway. So, they're always, trying to expand, on their brand, always trying to write more. And if it's a certain genre, then, then they want to continue to put, to publish those type of books. So, but what you're saying, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. And so this is for all of those people who think that, that you can write one book and it becomes a bestseller overnight and you don't have to write another one, ever. So that is not reality at all. So continue. Go ahead, please continue.
Yeah. So in terms of reality, if you're selling product on Amazon, Amazon's taking 55% of the retail price. So by the time you calculate what's left, you've got to sell a lot of product. So my suggestion to authors who are serious about making a living at this is your success happens before the first word hits the page. That's what I suggest to authors. It happens in your definition of the demographic. It happens then in the definition of the cover. It happens in the building of the audience. It happens in the joint venture work with other people who already have that audience. It happens all ahead of time. And ironically, coming from a horse showing background, success and failure in the horse show ring always happens before the day. It never happens the day of. It happens 6 months ahead.
That's the preparation. The preparation.
It's all the preparation. So when an author sits down and says, well, I'll write the book first and then I'll worry about selling it, you might as well shoot yourself in the foot.
Exactly, because you have to start out with that mindset. You have to be prepared before you even write the first sentence. Just like what you said. You always it's sort of like doing a budget. Most people think budgeting is related to the fiscal year that you're in, but it's not. It's for the next year that you're budgeting for, that you're planning for. So the same process has to go into, getting prepared for, for your book.
Exactly. And so what I often say to authors, and when I say this, my British husband often says, nobody understands that when you say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I tell him I'm going to say it anyway, and they'll get it eventually. And what I say is, everything in life is a metaphor for everything in life.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
So what that means is, if you understand how to budget and you understand that it is pre-planning for success next year, that's exactly the same metaphor that you could apply to writing a book.
Exactly.
Right? And if you understand the process of writing a book, the preparation ahead of time, then, and that would include, if you're organized, that includes the outline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where's your start, where's your finish. And let me just say that when I wrote the romance novels, part of the preparation was, what's the optimal page count?
Mm-hmm.
From a profit standpoint? What's the optimal page count? How many books can sell in a series?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in terms of percentages. And then, I mean, I read a boatload of Nora Roberts' work and other authors from other romance genres.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. And I didn't read them for their style. I read them for marketing.
Exactly.
Right. It was to determine, and this is the other thing that I suggest to authors. If you're thinking about writing a book, and now you have defined your demographic, go to the categories on Amazon
mm-hmm.
that you think your book would best fit in and study the bestseller list.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Who's on the bestseller list? What is their price point for their retail price on the print and the Kindle book? How many pages are in the book? You know, all of that is part of the pre-planning. So interestingly enough, when you actually sit down to write, you have a framework in which to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I hear authors say, I just don't know where to start, I'm looking at a blank screen and I don't know where to start. Of course you don't know where to start. You have no framework.
Right.
It's like trying to build a house with no blueprint.
Exactly. I always use that same reference. I'm like, it's you have to start exactly with the blueprints, and then you know before you start building walls and floors, you need a foundation.
Exactly.
So that's your foundation.
Right. So when an author starts with the framework, who's the demographic? Who are you writing the book for? How many pages are going to be in the first book?
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, sidebar note, if you're going to do romance or fiction, series books sell better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier, if you take the time to build the audience, you always want to have something else coming in the pipeline. And let me just say, as a writer, building the characters is a lot of work.
It is.
So why not use them again in book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5?
Exactly. They're already existing. They're pre-existing.
Exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah. So it's a whole lot less work, and the readers already know who these people are. So
Right.
it's fun.
Right.
To take them on another journey in book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5.
Well, you know, if the book is interesting enough, and if you have characters that are lovable or believable, they fall in love with those characters and they want to know more, because it's like these are my personal friends now. I'm so acquainted with them. I want to know what happens next in their life. So you're right about that.
Right, and I think I've worked with artists, painters, and one of the things I've noticed about them is that they will deepen the color of a canvas
mm-hmm.
by adding more colors, by adding more shadows with the paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
And as an author, as you build these characters, this handful of characters that you will carry through a series of books,
mm-hmm.
you want to paint them deep, so that you have room to move them around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want to have some struggle in life, some sort of handicap
mm-hmm.
in their life that they're
mm-hmm.
dealing with personally, emotionally, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have some fun side of them, some secret that they're carrying,
mm-hmm.
which is what we did in Fox Ridge, the first series.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to do all of that stuff, and then build those characters deep enough that a reader would want to read book 2, book 3, book 4,
Exactly,
book 5.
exactly. And so now let's talk about the packages a little bit in ghostwriting, because I don't want us to run out of time before we get a chance to talk about those things too.
Okay. For those authors who have a story to tell and just don't feel they can write that story, we can ghostwrite it for them. We would do it. We can do everything over the phone. We can tape record the calls. We can, and so essentially, the ghostwriting would be, it would be me asking them the 1,000 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want to write the story for? And, who is your target demographic? And now let's get into the story,
mm-hmm.
and let's talk about, what do you really want these people to take away when they finish the book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction?
Right.
What are the takeaways for the book that we really want to stress so that they get that? And then we start to develop the book.
Mm-hmm.
And we write it for them,
mm-hmm.
and then send them copies of it as we go so that they can see it and say, this is on target, this is not on target. We just sort of develop it together.
Right, because
but all of that, everything can be done over the phone. Because
basically what you're doing is you're capturing their thoughts and ideas, and then you're just putting it into words for them.
Exactly. In a flow that will sell. Mm-hmm. Right? Because, my joke always is, I don't want to kill trees.
Unnecessarily, right?
Right? We're low on trees to start with, so let's make sure if we cut one down to make a book, it's actually going to
exactly.
come back.
Exactly.
And you probably noticed that my focus is on, I want authors to make a living.
Right, and that should be their focus too. If you want this, if this is a career goal for you, if this is your path for that, then of course that's what you want to do. So you need to learn all that you can about it, so so you can be successful.
Yeah, and the other thing, when we did Fox Ridge, which is the first romance series that I wrote,
that was number one on Amazon.
Yeah, internationally, went Canada, Australia, and USA. Mm-hmm. And P.S., it's been on the bestsellers list for a year now.
All right. Yeah, congratulations.
The point is, though, that part of the process of doing that book was defining the demographic, mm-hmm. choosing the categories before the book was written, mm-hmm. and Kindle, Amazon will allow you to pick 10 categories for a print book. Mm-hmm. So we picked the 10 categories strategically. Mm-hmm.
And that's important.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, because part of the importance of that is if you hit number one and stay there, Amazon's algorithms start to kick in, and they start promoting you.
It's all about those algorithms.
Yeah. So the point I'm making, though, is if you just want to write a book because you want to write a book, okay.
Write a book.
Right. You want to make a living doing it. There's a lot involved that has nothing to do with the book.
And that's the truth. That's the truth of it. But I think what you're sharing today is vital, because a lot of people, they don't know that. All they know is, I'm a writer, and that's what I want to do. I want to write. But you have to educate yourself on anything. The same thing applies to if you wanted to become a doctor. Well, it's more to medicine than just learning how to write prescriptions. You have to really know everything, even if it's not even in your specific field of study. You still have to learn everything across the board in order to be the best at your profession. So that applies to writing books, selling books, all those things that goes into that.
And one of the things that I want to stress to authors is, like the doctor, if the doctor goes into private practice, he's going to spend most of his time wondering how many staffers should be on at 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. Who takes care of the phones, who's setting up the phones, who's taking care of the patients when they come in, mm-hmm. All of this stuff that has nothing to do with...
Right, with the medicine part of it, right.
Right, it's nothing to do with it. And fortunately for me, I bought a horse farm when I was in my mid-20s, mm-hmm. and I was thankfully so young and so dumb that I didn't know any of this. So the point I'm making is, what I quickly discovered was, my goal was to open a barn, spend my time teaching students and training horses.
Okay.
What I quickly discovered was that 99% of my time was spent dealing with staff problems.
Wow.
Like repairs in the building, mm-hmm. promotional stuff, marketing the barn to get customers to come in.
And you didn't sign on for that.
And then the funny thing is that the guys who worked for me would say, gosh, you're the luckiest guy in the world. And I think, what planet are you living on? Right? I give my eye teeth to have your job. All I have to do is show up and work horses. Instead, I spent my day doing stuff I was not the least bit interested in doing, which is marketing and, all this nonsense.
Yeah.
But without it, you're dead in the water.
Exactly. But it's important. And I
was lucky in my mid-20s to learn that lesson. Most people don't have the courage to step out on their own that young, mm-hmm. and take the chance.
And that's commendable. It really is.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful life lesson moment that mm-hmm. most people don't learn until they're in their 50s or 60s.
Right.
And you think, by that point, you should have known this.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But, but I think the moral of the story is that you did learn eventually.
Oh, man, yeah, but that was a painful lesson.
Right.
Yeah, and I spent years in that barn thinking, is it always going to be like this? Isn't there a time when I'm just going to be able to focus on riding and teaching and not have to do all this other stuff? And the answer was, never going to happen.
Right.
As long as you're the boss, it's never going to happen. You're
Right.
always going to have to deal with it.
Right, because you're in control. You are the commander in chief, so that is your job. To run that business, every aspect of it from beginning to end. But I before I let you go, because we're about to run out of time, and I want to make sure that that the audience knows how to reach out to you, and to also to read your best-selling books that is on Amazon Fox Ridge.
Right.
That's a 5-book series, right?
If people just go out to Amazon and type in Bonnie, Bonnie, Marlewski, Marlewski, just do that, and there'll be 30 or 40 books that come up.
Okay.
Everything is on Amazon. If you are interested in publishing or marketing help, you can always reach me at info@whitehallpr.com. That's Whitehall, P as in Paul, R as in Robert.com, or just visit whitehallpr.com for the website. And then we also have whitehallpublishing.com, and you can email info@whitehallpublishing.com as well. So those two websites, you'll see marketing help, and you'll see publishing help and ghostwriting and all of those things, and phone consulting. It's all out there.
Okay. Well, before I let you go, I want you to just leave us with a little bit of advice.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Best advice I can give to an author is own the outcome. Be prepared to own your own success. If you sign a traditional deal, you're giving away your rights to everything, and you're trusting people you don't even know,
right,
to do the job for you. And if they decide they don't want to print the book anymore, if they decide they want it to die on the vine, there's nothing you can do but buy it back.
Wow.
So it was Charles Schultz from Snoopy fame, who said to his daughter, who is an author as well, he said to her, if you sign a traditional deal, you're going to give away the kitchen on the first 3 books you do.
Wow.
But you're going to have to go on the road, and you're going to have to sell them as hard as you can so that you can market to the next publisher for the second book. Then you're going to have to do the same thing for the 3rd book. And by the 4th book, you'll actually start to make some money.
Wow. That's good advice. That is wonderful advice.
Painful advice. But now that Amazon is up and running, and quote-unquote self-publishing or hybrid publishing is so easily accessible for any author who is willing to own the outcome and learn the new skills that are required to market your work, which are very different from writing.
Right.
If they're willing to learn those skills, and they're not hard skills to learn, they're just new skills. If you're willing to learn those skills, you don't need a traditional publishing house.
There you go. You just heard it from Bunny.
There you go. Yeah, I appreciate being on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming on and giving us all of this great information. I mean, it's valuable. It really is. And I learned a few things myself, so I appreciate it. And you were very thorough. And I just thank you so much for first of all, willing to come and talk about all the things that goes into writing, publishing, marketing, all of those things, because all of that is important. So hopefully we'll get to talk again in the future. And I'm going to check out your books, because I definitely want to check out this #1 series. I'm going out there today and get my first copy and read it. So I'm dedicated to the first book.
I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the show. And anytime you want to get together, I'm available.
All right, Bunny. Thank you.
Thanks, Vivian.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. So there you have it. We had Bunny Marlewski-Probert from Whitehall Publishing, and she gave us a wealth of information today. So I hope that you did jot down everything that she said, or either if you have to go back and listen to the show, please do that. So you can get all of these tidbits that she shared with us today, because, all of these things are very important, and they are things that you should know before you start on this endeavor of writing, if you do want to be a published author, a successful published author. It's great to have all of this knowledge under your belt. So before we run out of time here, I want to give you a few URLs so you can keep in contact with Book Chat. Of course, the first one is through Spreaker. It is https://www.spreaker.com/user author Vivian E. Moore. You can also follow me like me on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram. If you go to the Spreaker URL, then I am tied into all the other ones, so you can it's like one-stop shopping. There you go. And also, if you want to keep up with my blog, you can go to http://vivianemore.blogsite.com to check out my blog. There won't be one for today, but there will be one hopefully next week. And also, if you missed the live show today, you can listen to it, the recorded version on iTunes and iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and also YouTube. So there you go. More than one way to listen to the show, more than one way to find me, and to, again, listen to this valuable information that was shared with us today. So I hope you're planning on going out to worship tomorrow. Tomorrow's worship day. Take some family members, take some friends. By all means, take some children to church with you, and tell someone that you love them, because tomorrow is not promised. Today may be the only chance you get to say that. So I love you. I hope you love me back. Until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.